IQAC സംഘടിപ്പിക്കുന്ന അന്തർദേശീയ വെബിനാർ സീരീസിന്റെ ഭാഗമായിട്ടുള്ള 31ാമത് പ്രഭാഷണമാണ് ഇവിടെ നടക്കുന്നത്. നമ്മുടെ ക്ഷണം സ്വീകരിച്ച് ഈ പ്രഭാഷണത്തിന് എത്തിയിരിക്കുന്നത് ഡോക്ടർ സുവർണ ദേവിയാണ്. മറൈൻ ഡെബ്രിസ് ആൻഡ് മൈക്രോ പ്ലാസ്റ്റിക് പൊല്യൂഷൻ എന്നുള്ള വിഷയത്തെ അധികരിച്ചാണ് ഇന്നത്തെ സംവാദം നടക്കുന്നത്. നമുക്കറിയാം, കൊല്ലം ശ്രീനാരായണ കോളേജ് നിരവധി വിഷയങ്ങളെ സംബന്ധിച്ചാണ് വെബിനാറുകൾ നടക്കുന്നത്. വൈജ്ഞാനികമായി വളരെ ഗൗരവത്തിലുള്ള വിഷയങ്ങളാണ് നമ്മൾ തിരഞ്ഞെടുത്തിരിക്കുന്നത്. ഇപ്പോൾ നടക്കുന്ന പ്രഭാഷണം പോലും സമുദ്രവുമായി ബന്ധപ്പെട്ടും പൊല്യൂഷനുമായി ബന്ധപ്പെട്ടും ഇക്കോളജിയുമായി ബന്ധപ്പെട്ടും നിരവധി സെമിനാറുകൾ നമ്മൾ നടത്തിയിട്ടുണ്ട്. അതിൻ്റെ എല്ലാം ഒരു തുടർച്ചയായിട്ടാണ് ഇന്നത്തെ വെബിനാറും നടക്കുന്നത്. അപ്പോൾ മറൈൻ ഡെബ്രിസ് ആൻഡ് മൈക്രോ പൊല്യൂഷൻ എന്നുള്ളത് ഇന്ന് ഏവരും ചർച്ച ചെയ്യപ്പെടുന്ന ഒരു വിഷയമാണ്. സമുദ്ര മലിനീകരണം എന്നുള്ളത് ആഗോളതലത്തിൽ തന്നെ ശ്രദ്ധ അർഹിക്കുന്ന ഒരു കാര്യമാണ്. പ്ലാസ്റ്റിക് അവശിഷ്ടങ്ങൾ സമുദ്രത്തിലെ ജീവന് വലിയ ഭീഷണിയാണ്. ഇപ്പം മൃദുവായ, എളുപ്പത്തിൽ രൂപപ്പെടുത്താവുന്ന തുടങ്ങിയ അർത്ഥത്തിലാണ് പ്ലാസ്റ്റിക് എന്ന പദം നമ്മൾ ഉപയോഗിക്കുന്നത്. കല്ല്, മണ്ണ്, മരം, ലോഹം എന്നീ പ്രകൃതിദത്തമായ നിർമ്മാണ പദാർത്ഥങ്ങളുടെ പട്ടികയിൽ മനുഷ്യൻ കൂട്ടിച്ചേർത്ത ഇനമാണ് പ്ലാസ്റ്റിക്. നിത്യജീവിതത്തിന് ഉപയുക്തമായ നിരവധി വസ്തുക്കൾ നിർമ്മിക്കുന്നതിന് ഉപയോഗിക്കുന്ന പ്ലാസ്റ്റിക് പൊതുവായി പ്രകൃതിയുടെ ജൈവ രാസ പ്രക്രിയയ്ക്ക് വിധേയമാവുന്നില്ല. ഈ കാരണത്താൽ പ്ലാസ്റ്റിക് മലിനീകരണത്തിന് ഹേതുവാകുന്നു എന്നുള്ളതാണ്. ഇപ്പൊ പരിസ്ഥിതിയിൽ പ്ലാസ്റ്റിക് ഉൽപ്പന്നങ്ങൾ കൂടുന്നത് മൂലം വലിയ പാരിസ്ഥിതിക മലിനീകരണമാണ് ഉണ്ടായിക്കൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നത്. അപ്പൊ ചിലവ് കുറഞ്ഞതായതുകൊണ്ടും എളുപ്പം ഉപയോഗിക്കാൻ കഴിയുന്നത് കൊണ്ടുമൊക്കെയാണ് പ്ലാസ്റ്റിക് ജനങ്ങൾ ധാരാളമായി ഉപയോഗിക്കുന്നത്. വളരെ പതുക്കെ മാത്രമേ വിഘടിക്കൂ എന്നുള്ളതാണ് പ്ലാസ്റ്റിക്കിന്റെ പരിമിതി. അപ്പോൾ ഭൂമിയിൽ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ സമുദ്രത്തിൽ പ്ലാസ്റ്റിക്കിന്റെ അവശിഷ്ടങ്ങൾ അടിഞ്ഞുകൂടുകയും അത് സമുദ്ര ജലത്തിലെ ജീവികളെ സാരമായി ബാധിക്കുകയും ചെയ്യുന്നു. അപ്പോ സമുദ്രത്തിലെ ആവാസ വ്യവസ്ഥയ്ക്ക് തന്നെ ഈ മൈക്രോ പ്ലാസ്റ്റിക് പൊല്യൂഷന് കാരണമാകുന്നു എന്നതാണ്. എന്ന് മാത്രമല്ല, കരയിൽ നിന്നാണ് ഏറ്റവും കൂടുതൽ പ്ലാസ്റ്റിക്കുകൾ ഭൂമിയിലേക്ക് കടലിലേക്ക് ചെന്ന് ചേരുന്നത് എന്നതാണ്. ഇപ്പൊ ഭൂമിയോട് ചേർന്നുള്ള അരുവികളും നദികളും പ്ലാസ്റ്റിക് അവശിഷ്ടങ്ങൾ തീരത്തേക്ക് കൊണ്ടുപോയി അത് സമുദ്രത്തിൽ എല്ലായിടത്തേക്കും എത്തിക്കുന്നു. അപ്പോൾ പ്ലാസ്റ്റിക് അവശിഷ്ടങ്ങൾ എല്ലാത്തരം ജലജീവികൾക്കും അപകടകരമാണ്. കടലാമ പോലെയുള്ള ചില സമുദ്രജീവികൾ പ്ലാസ്റ്റിക്കിനെ ഭക്ഷിക്കുന്നത് കൊണ്ടും വലിയ ഗുരുതരമായ ആഘാതങ്ങൾ ഉണ്ടാകുന്നു. അപ്പൊ സമുദ്ര മലിനീകരണത്തെ സംബന്ധിച്ചിട്ടുള്ള വളരെ പ്രസക്തമായിട്ടുള്ള ഈ പ്രഭാഷണത്തിനായി ഇവിടെ എത്തിച്ചേർന്നിരിക്കുന്ന ഡോക്ടർ സുവർണ ദേവിയെ കൊല്ലം ശ്രീനാരായണ കോളേജിന് വേണ്ടി ഞാൻ ആദരവോടെയും അതിലേറെ സന്തോഷത്തോടെയും സ്നേഹത്തോടെയും ഒരിക്കൽ കൂടി സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്തുകൊണ്ട് എൻ്റെ ഭാഷണം അവസാനിപ്പിക്കുന്നു. നന്ദി, നമസ്കാരം.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sunil Kumar, sir. Let me introduce today's speaker. With great pleasure, I am introducing today's speaker, Dr. Suvarna S. Devi. Dr. Suvarna Devi is serving as faculty in the Department of Aquatic Biology and Fisheries, University of Kerala. She had her master's in zoology from MG College, Thiruvananthapuram, and PhD in fish biology from Department of Aquatic Biology and Fisheries, University of Kerala. She also holds diploma in audiovisual journalism from Press Club, Thiruvananthapuram, and was a news presenter of Surya TV and ACV, and was anchoring various scientific programs in Nyanvani under IGNOU, and regularly conduct interviews and agricultural news in Krishi Darshan of Doordarshan channel. Her fields of specialization include fish biology, crustacean taxonomy, and of late she works on microplastics interaction with aquatic life. Dr. Suvarna also has described 4 new species of crabs from marine and mangrove ecosystems. Dr. Suvarna has published more than 25 research papers in several international journals like Zootaxa, Zookeys, Marine Pollution Bulletin, Raffles Bulletin, Nauplius, Asian Fishery Science, etc., and has also published a few book chapters. She is currently preparing a book on microplastics. We met firstly in a 5-day international conference organized by Department of Aquatic Biology and Fisheries, in which my guide, CM Aravindan sir, was the organizing secretary. We were in the organizing side those days. Do you remember or not? I'm not sure. She's always very friendly and a very jovial person with great happiness and love, inviting Dr. Suvarna Devi to the 31st talk of our Agora webinar series, organized by Sri Narayana College, Kollam. Over to Suvarna Chechi.
Okay, thank you so much, Disha, for such a wonderful, wonderful and sweet words. Okay, so shall I share my presentation?
Sure, sure.
Okay, thank you. Is it visible?
Visible, full screen, please.
Okay. Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. So, good evening, all. To be so ignorant and neglectful of our oceans is deeply troubling. There are limits to how much abuse we can inflict. So, good evening once again. So, this is a picture which was shot on 17th May 2021 at Pundura Fishing Village, the marine debris brought back by the sea during the cyclone during last week. So the plastic waste which were intentionally or unintentionally thrown into the ocean have now come back to us. So as you sow, so shall we reap. So let us keep this in our mind and begin the talk on marine debris and plastic pollution, microplastic pollution. So before moving into the talk, I'll give you a brief intro. As most of the one of the most pressing drivers which impact life in the ocean is marine debris, that is both land-based as well as sea-based sources, and has tangible and wide-reaching impacts affecting marine areas all over the world. And the prevalence of marine debris is visible in many areas, including coastlines, ports, open gyres, and even the deepest trenches. And the effect of marine debris is not only aesthetic, it has also a very serious impact on several marine organisms, their habitats, ecosystem, even on the human health as well as their general well-being. And the sources of marine debris, they range from land-based waste disposal, then from various fishing vessels, fishing gears, natural and anthropogenic disasters, etc. And they are omnipresent in oceans. Now, why studying them is important? Actually, it's not visible directly and hence should be investigated in detail before it get worsened. And the ocean energy, the tidal waves and tidal action, they break the larger plastic debris into macroplastic, and these they are further broken down into microplastic and into nanoparticles. So when making up a plastic material, there are so many toxins are added to it, like phthalates, plasticides, several additives, colorants, all these are added to it. So there are several toxins contained in them. Now, by the process of eaten and being eaten, these toxins contained in them, they get biomagnified. And so it's not easy to manage, thus affecting the marine environment by threatening the ocean health and food safety and quality, human health, coastal tourism, and it also contributes to the climate change. Now, any persistent solid material that is manufactured or processed, either directly or indirectly, intentionally or unintentionally, which is abandoned into the marine environment, forms the marine debris. So it can be of any type, like starting from plastic bag to medical waste, glass, plastic bottles, even the beverages can, ghost net, various waste from oil rigs as well as from cruise ships. And the majority of the marine debris forms a plastic. That is almost 80% of the marine debris is formed up of plastic. And out of this, almost 80% of the pollution was land-based and only 20% was formed from various maritime sources or catastrophic events. Now, by different methods, these these marine debris reaches the ocean. Usually when trashes are left directly in the beaches, from there it may reach the ocean. And then sometimes they may be carried away through the rainwater, through canals or rivers. Sometimes they are blown away by wind from the land. Accidents do happen in the ocean, like accidents from oil rigs, then from fishing vessels, etc. do happen. Now, ghost nest. Ghost net means those torn ones or the lost nets which are thrown by the fishermen into the sea. They form the ghost nets. They also pose severe problem. So as I told you earlier, they are omnipresent in nature. They are seen everywhere in almost every part of the ocean, from coastal areas, open sea, deep sea, from the remotest island, in sensitive zones like coral reef. So they do not remain in one place. They actually circulate through the water currents by the wave action. And also, I told you there are so many chemicals in the plastic. In addition to these chemicals, they also have the capacity to bioaccumulate and biomagnify most of the chemicals which are seen in the surrounding water. So that is another problem. So there is difficulty in surveying and monitoring. Now, and the percentage of cetacean and the seabird species which are affected by the marine debris, the consumption of these plastic marine debris, they have risen to 40% to 44% respectively. And globally, over 1 million bags of plastics they are used annually. And the fishing industry itself dumps around 150,000 tons of plastic into the ocean annually. Now, we are continuing to use the plastic in various forms. I think we have, at least in Kerala, we have banned the single-use plastic items, but still we are continuing to use the plastic in different modes, like plastic wrappers, food which we order from the restaurant, different types of plastic tiffin box, then plastic bottles which we drink water from. So we are continuing to do so. So if the present trend of plastic production is continuing to do so, and we shall have more plastic in the ocean than fishes by the year 2050. So this was stated in the World Economic Forum in the year 2016. Now a new term has been coined known as a platisphere. So this is a term that is used to refer to the ecosystem that have evolved to live in human-made plastic environments. And this term was put forward by Schlunder et al. In the year 2019. Now, I think you have heard about the mega rafting. That's a spread of invasive species across plastic debris. Actually, in the year 2011, in the East Japan, a massive earthquake occurred, and because of the earthquake, tsunami was launched, and an extraordinary transoceanic biological rafting occurred. As a result, and the scientists have published this in the Science, and they have documented almost 289, more than 289 living species, including from fishes to smaller organisms. They travel from Japan to North American shores in 6 years since the disaster. So all these 6 years, these living organisms have been traveling from Japan to North American shores. So many came on plastic or some other non-biodegradable objects, etc., like ships, rocks, dogs, etc., that were carried out into the sea during this destruction, during the tsunami. So the scientists call this phenomenon the mega rafting, and they worried that the increase in the marine debris combined with the climate change will speed up the pace of coastal species invasions. Now, this pie chart shows the source of microplastic in the marine environment. You can see that almost 35%, the major component is 35% is formed of synthetic textile. Major source of the microplastic was from synthetic textile industry, that is 35%. And then from the car tires, when these tires of cars and buses and lorries, when they wear off, the small microparticles will come and they ultimately reaches the ocean. And again, city dust, which cause several problems, again they also carry plastic. Then the paint which we use to mark on the road, they also contain plastic. Then the marine coatings, the paint with which we paint on the hull of the ship. Then again, the personal care products like certain face wash, certain toothpaste, all these contain some plastic beads. Again, these are also harmful. Ultimately, what happens is all these plastic waste, they finally reaches the ocean. So this microplastic, they are actually high polymer plastic particles. They are ranging in a size below 5 millimeter. And they are actually of two kinds, primary microplastic and secondary microplastic. Now, primary means those which are manufactured in the form of plastic, microplastic itself. That is, examples are micro beads, capsules, fibers, etc. And the secondary one means those existing macroplastic that break down into secondary microplastic. So this happens when the plastic waste, when they are exposed to the UV light of sunlight, or when it is exposed to the tidal action or the wave action, these macroplastics, they break down into still smaller fragments. So they form the secondary microplastic. Now these microplastics, they are different, they can be categorized into different types based on their shape. Microfiber, microfragment, micropellet, microfilm, microfoam, and microbead. Now, when you look into the global release of plastic into the ocean, you can see that if the population and the technology is higher, you can see larger the amount of plastic released into the ocean. So you can see that India and South Asia have more highly populated, and also the technology is also highly developed, especially in countries like China. So there, the release of carbon will be, release of marine debris will be more than the African and Middle East countries where population and technology is really less. Now, this figure shows the sources and pathway of the origin of plastics and finally how it ends in the ocean. You can see factories and plastic remains from household remains. Ultimately, they reach in the ocean where these large plastic macroparticles, they are broken down into microparticles. And what happens when these microplastic, when they reaches the ocean, what happens is a thin biofilm will be formed on its surface. Biofilm of bacteria will be formed on the surface, and these birds and smaller aquatic minute aquatic organisms like zooplankton, they mistook these plastic particles for food and they engulf it. That is how the primary consumers, they consume these plastics. Then they reach the secondary consumers, and that it will go on. And here the ship also release the plastic will be generated from the fishing nets and all that. And even plastic can be noted, microplastic can be noted in the oceanic gas. So here, so that is how the microplastic travel from land to ocean. Now this pie chart show the different kinds of aquatic life which are impacted by plastic. That is almost 2,249 species are affected by plastic litter, and over 300 tons of plastic are produced every year for different uses. Now, most of the impacted species are impacted organisms are mammals, birds, fishes, crustaceans, and mollusks. And some of the organisms, they ingest plastics, whereas others, they get entangled by the plastic debris, causing death. Now, several studies have demonstrated, that is, several experimental studies have shown that even the microplastics, where they were translocated, that is, once they consume the plastic, they were even translocated to the circulatory system, and sometimes they might even reach the tissues. So, right from the cyanobacteria, sea anemones, crustaceans, algae, single cell eukaryotes, sponges, then from these smaller organisms up to mammals, these aquatic life, they are seriously impacted by the plastics. Now we'll see what are the effects of encounters with the plastic. You know, when these aquatic organisms, they take in large amount of plastic, the problem is their stomach will be filled with plastic, and they find it difficult to move. So they show sluggish movements. And sometimes when they get entangled with the plastic, they find it difficult to breathe. And oxygen uptake will be less, and they find it difficult to breathe. Then it affects the community or the population structure. And I told you about the biofilm will be formed on the plastic surface. So similarly, several aquatic invasive species may also get stuck up on the surface of this plastic, and they get dispersed to distant places. Then if they reduce the food intake, that will obviously lead to the less growth in these organisms. Then when they ingest sharp plastic, microplastic like particles, their body gets several lacerations, and due to that they get several external as well as internal injury. As a result, ultimately they die. And some of the physiological changes will also take place because I already told you that several toxins are contained in these plastics, like phthalates, plasticizers. Then in order to give stability, in order to give color, certain dyes are used. So several physiological changes also takes place, affecting the reproductivity. Like in muscle studies, the certain experiments showed that these plastic particles, they're also carried to different parts of the body. Now, these are the different types of marine litter affecting the marine life, like fisheries, from the fishery sector itself, nets, metals, then glass, ceramics, then textile industry, timber industry, from cigarette butts, styrofoam, packing materials. All these are different kinds of litter which affect the marine life. Now, majority of the studies of these plastic, they are limited to marine debris, including macroplastic. Only a few studies are there on the microplastic impact on the marine biodiversity, and still lesser number on the nanoplastics. Now, the major question is how to detect the microplastic in the aquatic animals, whether it's in water or sediment or in aquatic animals. So actually, first you have to take the sample and you have to digest whatever organic matter is present in the sample. You have to digest it, and there are several methods for digestion. That is, acid method is there, alkaline method is there, enzymatic or oxidizing digestion is there. Different kinds of methods are there. Then you go for density separation and then filter the samples using filter paper, or Wadman's filter paper. And then the samples should be picked with metal forceps. You should be very careful to pick the samples with metal forceps. Do not touch brush or any other material. Use metal forceps or glass, something which is made up of only glass or metal, and should be placed in glass vials. And later, they should be double washed with distilled water, and they should be analyzed under ATR, FTIR spectrometer. And if the size of the plastic is much smaller, then you have to go for Raman spectroscopy, because for very small size of microplastic size, it's difficult to get a good spectrograph. Now below you can, then the identification of the microplastic can be made by comparing it with the sample from the Bruker's FTIR spectral library. Now below you can see two spectrographs, that's FTIR spectro obtained from the FTIR spectrometer. One is of the polypropylene and other is of nylon. See, in the graph you can see several wavelengths marked. So these wavelengths show what kind of polymer the particular plastic material contains. Now, understanding the fate of micro and nanoplastic is necessary for a better understanding of this distribution of plastic pollution and disposition of plastic pollution. Now, there are several increasing evidence of microplastic, which it has been hazardous to the aquatic environment as well. So, they have become benchmark tools for policy makers to mitigate foreseen problems of microplastic contaminations. And 89% of the impacts were at suborganismal level from micro and nanoplastic, and only 11% was affected by the larger debris, like entanglement in ropes, netting, or death because of larger items. No studies were conducted, or lesser studies were conducted on the impact at the ecosystem level. Now, there are several Indian examples as well. There's sediment samples of Vembanad Lake in Kerala. It's a very important study, and that's almost in every square meter, it has been reported that 266 microplastic particles were reported. That was by Shruti and Ramaswamy in the year 2018. Now, several scientists have recovered plastic from the gut of dozens of fish species from east as well as from the western coast of India. We have also conducted several studies on the microplastic ingestion by, especially in invasive fishes, several invasive fishes. Now, ingestion of microplastic, we know that fishes as well as other vertebrates, even the smaller invertebrates, they have been feeding on this microplastic as well as nanoplastic. Now, several experimental studies have also shown a list of zooplankton, arthropods, mollusks, and worms consuming these microplastic. So along with these phytoplankton interaction, these microplastics, they affect the sedimentation rate also. Now, again, another experimental studies showed that when fleas were exposed to round beads, microplastics, steroid, round beads, they and of irregularly shaped plastic fragments, they consumed these plastic pieces, and they got stuck in their gut. Now, even the corals, they are seen to consume microplastic, especially in this context of climate change. Now, the primary consumers, which are made up of bacteriovorous, herbivorous, hereditivores, and deposit feeding species, they actually feed on forage on this particulate matter. So they have the capacity to ingest more of these microparticles because they forage on the particulate matter. And the direct ingestion of microplastic is a major route for primary and secondary consumers, while the top predators, they are actually we can say that they have indirect ingestion of these microplastics via the food web through the process of eaten and being eaten. So the top predators, they have indirect ingestion, whereas the primary and the secondary consumers, they have direct ingestion. And the intake of food and microplastics, they depend upon various complex interactions between the several biotic and abiotic factors. Now, microplastics, they are made up of different kinds of polymers like polyethylene, polystyrene, PET, polyethylene terephthalate, PVC, polypropylene, etc., from various sources. And thus they represent a plethora of material characteristics. So in general, the plastic materials, they are highly functional compounds of synthetic polymers. Like I told you earlier, they consider different additives like plasticizers, flame retardants, colorants, all these have been added. Also, studies have proven that leachates from the plastic products, they were found to contain several chemicals with highly toxic chemicals, which are induced by monomers residues of production processes like catalyzers, stabilizers, etc. They are usually added when this plastic product is formed. So some leaching compounds were classified as endocrine disrupting chemicals. And this also, I told you earlier, certain phthalates, bisphenol, etc. has been added, and they adversely affect the several physiological parameters like reproductive capacity and all that. These endocrine disrupting chemicals are very harmful. Now, earlier I told you about the term plastisphere put forward by Schlund et al. In the year 2019. So when any small kind of small plastic particle, when it goes into the ocean, a thin layer of bacteria or microbes, they get a coating, and later the fate of this microplastic is usually judged by the biofilm form, that is either to sink or to float, or even further breaking them into smaller pieces. So actually very little is known about the kind of microbes in the plastisphere, or how they interact with one another and also with the plastic. So the most dominant important phyla colonizing the microplastic, they include the proteobacteria, cyanobacteria, and bacteroidetes. And especially the plastisphere microbial communities, they were heterogeneously mixed, providing the first glimpse of bacterial interaction. In the second and the third picture, these are the same pictures of the microplastics. You can see certain pits on the pictures. These pits are due to the plastic degradation. Now, a new customized and extended technology has been developed known as a Classifish, that is a combinatorial labeling and spectral imaging fluorescence in situ hybridization. Now, earlier we were telling about the aquatic organism, but among the top predators, like even the whales, the sharks, and the larger octopus species, even they cannot escape the ruinous embrace of humanity's plastic waste. So hundreds of sharks have been reported as falling victim to entangle in this fishing gear and other plastic debris. So killing from sea turtles to gray whales. Now, about 1% of the plastic in the ocean float on the surface, and most of the rest of the plastic, they sink into the ocean surface. So the ocean currents and other near seafloor, they appear to control where the sinking plastic they end up. So it depends upon the oceanic current. So it's very important that we develop a basic understanding of the process. There's a distribution of the microplastic. We should understand first the process that control the distribution of the microplastic. Only then we can have a better understanding and how these tiny fragments, they enter the food chain through the marine life. So actually these microplastics, they often accumulate on the deep sea floor in the same place where they have a dense marine life communities. And this is because the same submarine sediment that flows, sediment flows that transfer the oxygen and nutrients in order to sustenance of the life, they transport the microplastic from urban rivers to the deep sea floor. Now, this is a very good example that we should follow. The man behind the world's first biggest beach cleanup, that's Afrosha. Actually, in the picture, in the third picture, you can see the Warsaw beach in the year 2015. You can see the state of the beach in Warsaw. And now in the year 2018, you can see how clean it is. The Mumbai people, they got a very beautiful beach because of this person, Afrosha. He's a lawyer, and he started this individually. That is, he started to clean the beach individually, and later several slumdwellers, politicians, and movie stars, they also joined him, and they cleaned the beach, and they even continue to do so. And he has conducted several awareness class for the, not only for the children, but also the several beachside settlements are there near the Warsaw beach. So they even try to educate them about the effects of littering these plastic and turn them into zero waste communities. So what he believes is the problem is not with the plastic, but the problem is our empathy towards plastic, or how we handle the plastic. And actually, it's the people, they have to change their mindset. So that is what he says. So this is a example which we can follow. Now, how to manage these microplastic and the way ahead. So there are several complex questions and economic philosophies. So maintain demand for new plastic. I think even now we have a high demand for new plastic. So we cannot put the blame on the producers, because still there is a high demand for plastic. Now, incinerating post-consumer material. Again, incinerating plastic is yet another problem causing climate change, because it results in the production of large amount of greenhouse gases, thus increasing the climate change, affecting the climate change. Then recycling, regulated design, and producer responsibility of refusal and replacement. The producers, what they do is they only produce things. They don't have the responsibility to recycle or recycle the product. So life cycle of plastic in social justice context, and the rag pickers, they also had to be very careful, because they are the ones who get a variety of diseases from these different materials along with the marine litter. So some of the sources could be stopped by effective legislation, like you can ban microbeads, which are seen in the toothpaste, face wash, etc. Also education and regulation enforcement, litter laws. If we go to any foreign country like Singapore or some other European countries, they never litter anything. But what we do in our roads and in our beach, we just drink water from a bottle and then throw it away. If you have a cover, we have a carry bag, and you were eating something from that bag, later you just throw it away. You never bother where you are throwing the litter. You never take it home, or you never keep it in a waste bin. So there should be some litter laws and technological advancements. And microplastic, they reaches the aquatic environment through the supply chain, that is in the form of pre-production pellet, littering, or irresponsible waste management. Now, again, now we have a ban for single-use items. Still, you can keep a fee for such items. Then certain items can be banned, like plastic bags, microbeads, then plastic cutleries. All this can be banned. Then in the new materials can be innovated, manufactured, and recycling the product is another alternative. So eco-labeling and certification scheme can be done. Then campaign using various media. Then along with involving religious institutions, education. Then we can also employ certain ambassadors for taking up these ocean campaigns. Then various awareness program can be conducted. Also, there's an urgent need to explore the use of the existing legally binding international agreement to address this global pollution. Now, recycling and reuse of plastic product is also very necessary to replace single-use plastic. They are also necessary to prevent the single-use plastic production. Now, there are some technical solutions, but the question is, will it work or not? That's the question. So floating nets are used to capture debris in the ocean, but we don't know how much of the plastic would be collected from that net. Now, plastic to fuel pyrolysis machines are there on the ocean going barges. Again, we don't know how much they could do. Now, certain type of bacteria, they are fed into the sea, they are put into the sea, which consume polyethylene, polyethylene terephthalate, polypropylene, etc. Again, we don't know how much quantity of this plastic these bacteria could consume. So all these are different solutions, but we don't know. Sometimes they fail in several fronts. Most of them are economically not viable, is costly. So minimizing ecological impact maybe, and design and testing it in real ocean conditions is really difficult. Now, fishing for the litter was presented as the only viable ocean cleanup program and is described as a useful last option in the hierarchy. But we can only address certain types of marine litter. Not all litter cannot be collected with the help of ocean cleanup. And most scientists and policy makers, and the ocean cleanup is not economically or logically feasible according to them. Now, we have a program set up by the Fisheries Department of Kerala and Fish Boat Operators Association. That is, program is known as Sujitwa Sangram, or the Clean Sea Project. So whenever these fishermen, when the trawlers, they go to sea, their trawl nets, along with the marine resources, these nets, they also contain several plastic materials. In earlier days, they used to throw away all these plastic into the sea and they come back. But now, because of this program, they collect all these plastic junk and they collect it back to the harbor. And from the harbor, the women who are the ladies in the Kudumbashree unit, with the help of these ladies, what they do is they sort out the plastic, they clean it, then they place in the shredding machine and turn it into material, and then they shred it, and then they are used for making roads. So this is a good project taken up by the government. Now, there are several alternatives to the plastic. That is, pressed hay can be used as egg carton, then banana leaf, bamboo packaging, even seaweeds which are edible, they can also be used for packaging. Mushroom packaging is there. They can replace even the styrofoam packing. Then wood cleaning brushes, kitchen utensils can be used. Then stainless steel cup can be used, and bottles can be used instead of plastic ones. Then bee bags coated cloth, they can be used for plastic wrap and plastic bags. Then truly biodegradable water bottle is there. On the top, you can see a water bottle that is made up of agar-agar. So when once the water is filled in the bottle, it will be in the shape of bottle. And if there is no water, it will shrink. And if you want, you can eat the bottle also. Actually, it's edible. It's made up of agar-agar. So it is completely biodegradable. Now, there is another one, I think most of you have seen the last picture. Algae-derived water drinking device, that's a OHO, shaping liquids into sphere by placing frozen water into calcium chloride and brown algae solution. That is another technology. Now, the certain edible cutleries are used in Hyderabad and all that. They are made up of 3 floors like rice, millet, sorghum, etc. Now, there are bioplastic and biodegradable plastics. Now, the bioplastics, they are made from renewable materials like orange peel, corn oil, soya beans, microorganism, starch, etc. Whereas biodegradable plastic, they are made from traditional petrochemicals, but they are designed in such a way that certain additives are added to them, so that they will the rate of decay or the breakdown process will be speeded. It would be at a much faster pace in the presence of oxygen and light. But again, complete biodegradation needs commercial facilities. Also, the problem with these alternatives is they are very expensive, and they have the potential to make if it is, suppose you get a cover like this and it is written biodegradable, and what you do is you throw away that particular cover or a particular cup, and again it will take certain time to undergo degradation. Meanwhile, it may get entangled into some other organism, or it may get inside the body of some other seabird or whale or mammal get accidentally ingest these marine organism, or they get entangled into it. So again, littering is another problem. So we'll see the emerging questions in the future research. National policy on the single-use plastic and microplastic for India is a better option. And another thing is a standardization of the protocol of microplastic detection is necessary. Different researchers use different protocols. That is yet another problem. But again, that depends upon the depends upon one's choice and the kind of work they do. And then a better knowledge and database on Plastisphere should be made. And also networking of institutions, different institutions can come together and they can document the microplastic diversity and the impacts and the chemical contamination and ecosystem impact. And multidisciplinary thinking is necessary for our future, and involving not only the scientists, but also the citizen scientists in monitoring and promoting the linkage along with the academic institutions. Now, when come to think about the zero waste hierarchy, we can always, the 3 R's are very useful, like reduce, reuse, and recycle. So that will improve the waste recovery, and thereby we can prevent the loss to microplastic to the environment. So other than natural degradation in the environment, like UV rays of the sunlight, oxidation, breakage, degradation, etc., there are other activities which also create microplastic, like I think right from the site of industries itself, right from where they release these waste materials, distribution sites, then vehicle tire dust, shavings in the plastic product, then these personal care products like toothpaste, face wash, etc., from textile mills, they also produce these pre-production pellets. So these they lack specific method of measurement. So there's no special measurement is there for at the time of their release into these sewage. So new standardized technologies to measure their significant, especially the secondary microplastic, should be there. So it is the worst of the times, but it is the best of times because still we have a chance because we are alive. Thank you.
Thank you, Suvarna Chechi. Shall we go for the Q&A session?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Could you see it?
Yeah, I can see it. Shall I go?
Yeah. Shall I read it one by one or?
No, I'll do it. No problem. Okay. Please brief on the first question is by Bhaskar. Please brief on the physiological effect of microplastic in aquatic animals. Actually, there are so many physiological effects. We cannot say one by one. Each organism, they show different kinds of physiological effects. So some of them show reproductive problems, some others show some digestive problems. That's different. Physiological problem depends upon the different kind of organism or the kind of plastic they may encounter with. So we cannot say that in that way. So the next question is by Arya Prasad. We know the plastic have been taking up the whole world, but can we implement any genetically modified bacteria to reduce the marine plastic pollution? Okay, Arya, I don't know about genetically modified bacteria, but bacteria, yes, they are used in sea to consume these plastics in the sea. They are being used now. Now, does microplastic cause biomagnification? That's a question by Nivea Denson. Yes, microplastic do cause biomagnification. That is, I told you before, the smaller organisms, they take up these microplastics, and as they are consumed by the higher level of organisms, these microplastics, the toxicity, they get bioaccumulate and surely they get biomagnified. Now, a question by Arya Shaji, how the microplastic they are affecting the mangrove ecosystem? Actually, I haven't done any work on that mangrove ecosystem and the microplastic. I'm sorry, I couldn't answer that. Now, another question by Nila, does fishing gears disintegrates into the, maybe any of the panelists could answer this, how the microplastic affecting the mangrove ecosystem? Maybe Dr. Biju Kumar, Dr. Santosh, anybody could answer this? How these microplastic, they're affecting the mangrove system?
Biju sir, please. Not responding.
Okay. Santosh, maybe Santosh can answer.
Hello.
Hello, can you answer this question, Dr. Biju Kumar, how the microplastic they are affecting the mangrove ecosystem?
No, sorry, there is no specific, microplastic, the action is not specific to an ecosystem, basically. And the impact will be the same in all the cases. See, the microplastic impact we have to see in like that, whether freshwater or mangrove or the marine ecosystem, the impact will be the same in all the ecosystem. For example, if the microplastic is present in any ecosystem, the impact would be the same. For example, as far as the biological system is concerned, they are actually absorbed selectively by the organisms. And then all the issues are then connected with the selective absorption of the microplastics, and also the contamination through these chemicals present in the microplastic. So the mangrove ecosystem, the impact would remain the same compared to any other ecosystem. So there is no specific thing connected with the mangrove ecosystem. But the issue here is that, compared to the shallow water regions, the amount of the biodiversity will be much higher in the mangrove ecosystem, because it's a shelter for the organisms. Particularly, it serves as a nursery. In that case, the chance of the microplastics getting into the biological system is much more in a mangrove ecosystem. That is how it has to be seen.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Biju. Okay, so I hope Arya is satisfied. Now, next question is by Nila. Does fishing gears disintegrate into microplastic? If so, is it possible to replace a fishing gear without forming microplastic? Of course, fishing gears, they disintegrate into microplastic. We itself got several pieces of torn pieces of microplastic, that is from the fishing nets. I don't know whether there are any technologies for fishing gears without forming microplastic. I don't think so. Next question is by Mohammed Shamil. How the microplastic affect the small marine animal groups like mud crabs, given the gills of the crabs are exposed to microplastic? How it will affect the existence? Of course, they will be if the gills, I think most of the aquatic animals, like even the crabs, not only in the gills, they might get entangled in the net also, as the gills may contain microplastics. Actually, when we do the plastic studies, microplastic studies, we usually transfer we pull the gill and put it in vials and put it in the solutions and we are just working on that. Now, another question is, does different seasons affect the fragmentation of microplastics? I don't think so, but climate does have the effect on fragmentation of microplastic. Now, is a bioplastic is a good solution or good alternative for marine plastic pollution? It's a good solution, Naina, but again, it's very costly. It's eco-friendly, but it is at the same time it's costly. So everybody cannot afford this bioplastic. Now, a question by Lily Devi. What is the short, medium, and long-term impact of COVID-19 pandemic on ocean sustainability, and what would be the alleviates and excavators? We know that because of the COVID, so many people are using this mask, and even the doctors and the health workers, they are using this PPE kits. Now, the problem is if it is a medical waste, usually the hospital people, what they do is they just incinerate it. Again, this incineration, even we also do the same thing. I think we do the same thing, but the problem with incineration is, again, they will release large amount of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. So that way is not good for the environment. Now, another question by Dr. Sneha Chandran. It's very sad to know that organisms with very slow mode of movements can be invasive alien species through mega rafting. So this will be an emerging serious problem to be addressed with much seriousness. Yes, true, very true, Sneha. It's a very serious issue this mega rafting has created. Next question is by Angel Anthony. What are the impacts of COVID-19 on microplastic pollution? Right now, we cannot say about the impact, but so many so many masks are being disposed on the roads, on the oceans, most of the even ponds, rivers. You can see so many so many masks and other items. Definitely, it is going to create an impact. We cannot know it now, but only later. This will come out shortly. Now, how to quantify the microplastic present in the water sample? First, we have to do all this digestion process, and then you have to do the density separation, and then you can quantify. You can take the length. You can take the measurement, And then you can weight. I don't think you can do that. Quantification, I don't know. I'm unable to answer that part. But the length you can measure with the help of a microscope and a computer attached to it. We can measure the length of the microplastics. Length and number we can do, and we can do the standard deviation and other corresponding statistics. Then how can we prevent microplastic coming to the food chain? We cannot prevent it from coming into the food chain. First, we have to be aware about the problem we are creating. So stop putting plastic into the atmosphere or in the environment. We cannot prevent. Prevention is better than cure, but we have to stop using this plastic first of all. Then, due to COVID situation, people depend on single-use plastic all over the world. What is the alternative? We think about this type of pandemic time. During this time, there's no alternative for single-use plastic. There's no other way, like surgical mask and all is single-use. We cannot do any other thing. Like the PPE kit, they can be used only 3 or 4 times. Again, they have to incinerate it. So there is no other way of single-use plastic for all these things, especially for virus. Now, how does the marine debris affect the environment nowadays? That is causing a lot of trouble. That was all the talk about. So I thought, I think now we have got a better picture. Is it possible to convert microplastic and marine debris into biodegradable products? Microplastics and marine debris, I don't think they can be converted into biodegradable products because they itself, they are not biodegradable. So how can we convert them into biodegradable products? Only biodegradable substance can be done that. They can be degraded. Non-biodegradable microplastics, they are usually made up, they are polymers made up of different materials. So they are non-biodegradable products. So they cannot be converted into biodegradable products. So I think, Jisha, I have answered all the questions.
Thank you, Suvarna Jiji. Shall we wind up?
Okay, sure.
Or any?
No, nothing is said. Is there anything to be said, Dr. Biju, Dr. Santosh?
Biju sir?
Anything more to be said? Something which I left out? Dr. Biju sir can add?
No, I think because the further things are much complicated things which we try to explain. It will take a lot of time, specifically because when you this topic is basically a topic where even the postgraduate students can take up it as a project, primarily because the topic is much vast and a lot of things can be done, particularly for the young researchers, because there's a lot of information gap available. For example, the oceanic as well as estuarine freshwater biodiversity and their amount of contamination with microplastic is one thing. The biological system as well as the water as well as sediment. So these things, there's a lot of workforce is required to actually make a database. One. And second is that this is second component is that there is another area which is emerging, the chemicals present in the microplastics and how it actually get into the physiology of these organisms and affect it. And that's the second thing. And the third thing is actually the one which I already mentioned by Suvarna, that's actually the plastisphere. Plastisphere is actually the microbial contamination which happens through the microplastics, and that also needs some kind of expertise. But these are the things which we can further work out, and further the bioaccumulation process as well as the other processes. And regarding management, somebody asked a question, and the management in the ocean is rather difficult, and that is why we call often for upstream management. Upstream management is that whatever the waste which enter into the ocean, primarily almost 90% of them come from the land-based sources. So we need to actually upstream manage it, and that means we have to manage it in the land itself rather than going into the ocean. And that kind of a management practice is required, and absolutely impossible to actually weed out the plastic from the ocean. So that means we have to be more vigilant in not polluting the system, the marine systems.
Thank you so much, Biju sir. Shall we wind up?
Yeah.
Now I invite B. Suraj, research scholar, Department of Zoology, SN College, Kollam, for the formal vote of thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. A warm good evening to all. It gives me an immense pleasure to